to wait for speed parts. Every time you bust his knuckle, end up throwing a wrench through the wall, and just basically Murphy's Law that happens. Anything that can happen will happen in this garage. It just seems like it's the way these projects end up going. A little bit about myself. My name is Vince Smith. I'm an engineer by trade. I've always tinkered on vehicles. I rewired a Harley Davidson when I was back in my teens, kind of rebuilt the whole thing, had a nice custom little Sportster. Was really in the motorcycle scene. Got into drag racing a couple of years ago. As far as actually doing drag racing, I've always watched it, kind of a spectator sport, but never really participated. You're going to see a lot of different projects from motorcycles to cars, like the one you see right behind me. This car right here, it's a 1964 AMC Rambler American. Basically, it was pretty much done up in the early to late 90s and hasn't really raced down the track since probably the early 2000s. This car specifically, it has a 383 small block Chevy, power glide transmission, a 4.9-inch rear end, and basically everything to go with it. No interior, it's pretty much a full tube chassis car. It has a ladder bar suspension in the back there. Pretty much just full on old school race car. There's none of the new modern stuff. Still carbureted engine, still iron heads, nothing really fancy. You'll see my dad, he also has a 1977 Chevy Vega wagon, which is back half, the 4.9s, but it's got a 383 small block Chevy in it, a TH350 transmission, and a nice cage and all that stuff to go with it. Nice race cars. This one will probably be in the 10s, mid to high 10s. That car is a mid to high 10 second car as well. You also see a 77 Kawasaki KZ1000 drag bike, complete bar bike. We got to do some rebuilding on that, as two of the cylinders were low on compression last time I checked it. You'll see a 2005 Dodge Magnum RT, 2006 Chrysler 300 SRT8, and then also 2006 Pontiac GTO with a 6.0 and manual. There's a lot of projects you'll see that we work on. Those are basically the race cars and fast cars. Some other stuff we got is a 2002 S10. We're going to help my nephew rebuild and get it back roadworthy so that he has a vehicle when he turns 16 in the next 6 months, so that he does not walk into school, he can actually drive himself to school. You'll see motorcycles. We got, like right over here is a 1966 BSA A650 Lightning. Basically there's chopped in the back. It's a hardtail. It's a really nice bike. Let me just take you over to it real quick. So you'll see right here, it's an A650 Lightning. Like I said, it was chopped and hardtailed. The tank and all that is off it right now because the jugs were leaking oil pretty bad. The guy who did it did a nice job on the body work, but essentially what ended up happening to it was the engine work wasn't done all that well, so it ended up leaking oil and was just blowing oil through it. So we're gonna do a complete jug kit on this. We're gonna rebuild it, get it back to what it was, because the guy did a lot of nice body work on it. Basically the way I acquired it was my dad was out there trying to kickstart it one day. He couldn't get it started and he said, screw this thing. And I go, I'll get it kickstarted. He goes, I bet you won't. I go, I bet I will. And he goes, if you can get it kickstarted, I'll give you the bike. Well, I go out there and slides, and 3 kicks later, this bike was fired up and I was about to take it down the road. That's kind of how I acquired this bike here in particular. So what you're going to see us work on today is we're going to work on the carburetor and the distributor. So the two of the issues I was having late last year with this vehicle was it doesn't like to stay running, especially when I put it in gear. I have to be like 1600 RPM just to keep this thing from bogging out. Once it's warm, it has a little bit more drivability, but the second I put the line lock on, it wants to bog out. So once there's pretty much a weird load on it. So a lot of this comes down to a timing issue, and I also think it's a little bit of a carburetor issue. So I think in combination, wasn't working really well. So this thing has a Holley 4150 double pumper on it currently, 850 CFM. It was rebuilt, but I don't know, something got mixed up, or just maybe it's just not enough anymore. I think some of the adjustments are out, but instead of me sitting there playing with it all day long, I'm gonna go ahead and just put something new on it. So I got a Proform. So we got this Proform 850 CFM, basically the double bumper. It's built basically the same way a 850 CFM Holley double bumper is. Mechanical secondaries. This one doesn't have a choke tube on or anything like that. So basically we got a primary main jet of 79, secondary of 87.5, idle air bleed of 70. Basically the primary nozzles are 33, and so is the secondary. And the power valves are 4.5. So it's actually built more towards the racing side of things. We're going to put this on. We won't be able to put the fuel to it yet to get the sight glasses adjusted. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty close out of the box. The other issue we were having is it has an older MSD distributor on it, which I think is doing fine. It's not locked out. It has a mechanical advance. This particular engine has a 614 lift on the cam, pretty big lobe separation angle. So I don't think it's liking that mechanical advance because to set it at idle, it wants a lot more timing than it's going to give. So we're going to stab a new one of these in. We'll have to change out the gear down here because this is a hearted camshaft, so we're going to have to put the brass drive gear on it, which will be just fine. And we'll put this on because all the lockout mechanism was already removed on it, so you see there's no movement there. That's pretty much what we're going to do. So we're going to set the timing at probably 34, 36 degrees of timing on this thing when we get it running. Today's not a good day. It might be warm in my garage, but it's only 28 degrees outside, so we're probably not going to start it for a little while. We have some warmer weather coming up here probably next week or so. So right now in Northeast Ohio, it's really cold, so it's just not good for this engine right now. So we'll put the stuff in today. We'll get the new carburetor on. We'll get some things swapped over, and then we'll go from there. We do have some wiring I do want to address on this thing, but we're going to do that. As you can see, that carburetor is pretty well beat. It's an old Holley 4150, but you can see the race wheels kind of got into it. I did do a quick rebuild kit on it when I first put it back on, but it doesn't seem to be doing what it needs to be doing. I do need to adjust some of these levers for the accelerator pumps, but so I think it was a little bit of me just not really adjusting it, but then me also wanting a new carburetor. Let's get to it. How many sockets do you grab when you're trying to guess the right size? I mean, I know some of you are probably professionals and what is your preferred tool manufacturer? You guys craftsman people? Are you a DeWalt person? You know, which one do you tend to go with? Me, I go with the decent. Make sure I got it at top dead center of the compression stroke. Easiest way to tell is rotate your engine, honestly. The timing marks on your balancer here are going to tell you, but then also your rockers will tell you. So when they're both at the bottom here, they're both basically just starting to dance, that's when you know you're at the top TDC of your compression. Right now we're actually on the exhaust stroke. With my exhaust valve is down, my intake valve is up. So this is a solid roller lifter system in here. There's no flat tap, and we're not doing hydraulic because we're going at such high RPMs, and we're also at such a high lift that we'd end up starting to float valves in this situation. No street driving, all drag racing, so that's kind of where this is locked out at. This is actually a good distributor, and I could pull out the mechanical advance on this because it's probably a better distributor than what I'm running. Now, I'm not the smartest fellow there is, so people are gonna be like, well, what the heck, that's a good distributor right there, you might as well just lock that up. And I could, and it's pretty simple. It would involve grabbing this, taking off your cap, there's that, moving. So this is your actual, right here is your mechanical advance. Okay. So you come in here, one spring, two spring. You then have to take off your retainers. Cool. You're gonna pull off your armatures. Bam. It's supposed to be right here. You see this little nut. You take this off, you take this little bushing out, you then turn it, and you lock this bad boy down. I don't have any of the extra stuff to go with this that would basically enable me to do so. There should be like a lockout pin. You'll see basically here where that same nut, the bushing would have been, it's now gone. Now there's a pin right here going, there's a pin. There's this going through now. That locked out this distributor. That's where the bushing was. That's what I was showing you. Take the nut off. You should be able to just lock it out once that's out of there. So, like I said, the thing is I don't have the lockout pin or anything to actually enable this to happen, so we're not gonna do that. We're gonna put in the Summit one. I do have other uses for this. Essentially, we have another engine we're going to build. It's gonna be a little 355 SBC, and we're gonna utilize that engine. We're going to utilize some spare parts we have, some spare heads we got laying around. We'll probably buy another intake just to have a spare little racing engine. So we have to get this drive pin out, which you can see it was already punched out once before. We got to get this one out. We're going to swap these. We need this one here for the high lift. This one here is too hard, it'll actually ruin our camshaft. Alright, so as you can see, we went ahead, we put the Proform 850 CFM carburetor on there. Basically, it's built for this engine right here. It's a race carburetor, pretty big power valves, pretty big nozzles. So I'm hoping this helps all the issues. We also stabbed that Summit Racing distributor in there. We had a little difference with the caps and the wires, so we went ahead and put the MSD cap on it. I'm going to do a little research. I think we'll be just fine with using this cap instead of the Summit one. Like I was saying, basically the Summit distributor is all the replacement parts that they list on their website are MSD parts. It's literally a carbon copy of an MSD distributor. So we'll use this cap. Everything else looks exactly the same, so I think we'll be okay there. I would go start it, or go to try to start it, because it's actually pretty warm in this garage right now. Outside temperatures less than 30 degrees though, so I'll be okay with not starting it for now. We got to set the timing again because, well, we pulled the distributor and I'd like to reset the timing exactly where it needs to be. So the other things we have to address, there's quite a bit of wiring that I've undone in the car. The car had an old fuse panel with basically glass fuses almost. So I didn't like those, so I went ahead and bought a new basically power distribution block with blade terminal or with blade fuses. Also got some relays to put in there for the fan, for the fuel pump, for the water pump. You know, we young people, we like to make everything modernized, so I went ahead and got a new rocker set and a new push button start. I really did like the painless kit, but I just can't see spending $200-300 on some switches. My goal for this year is basically get this car down the tracks. Yeah, so I bought this car in November of 2022. I rebuilt the whole car. We pulled the old engine out, which, like I said, was a 400 small block Chevy D-stroke to a 377. It had a power glide transmission. Nothing seemed to really want to work. The rear end actually was leaking fluid, so it needed re-welded. So basically pulled everything out, did everything we had to do on it, got it ready for spring. I took it to the track and I just wasn't confident that this thing was ready to go. I hadn't even made a test pass on the street yet. I couldn't really get the timing set. A friend of mine was supposed to bring his timing light, he did, but we couldn't read timing. So I'm like, you know what, I'm not gonna rush it. I have all summer to get this thing down. I'd rather not blow it up. Bring it back, take a look at it. I think I got the timing set right and, you know, got everything going. Basically to do the first hit on the road and hit 7,000 RPM, and this thing just blew up. It threw a rod right through the block. Originally I was like, oh, it's just a head gasket, you know. Had some other buddies over here. If we said it's just a head gasket, got to investigate a little deeper. Nope, I saw there's a hole in my oil pan and we were leaking a whole lot of oil. So basically threw a rod through the block, and I knew I had a sticky wrist pin. I think it was a combination of detonation from it being so far out of timing, and then also that sticky wrist pin just let go at that RPM. So that's kind of what happened with that last engine. Luckily I got the car so cheap it wasn't much of a worry. I was pretty bummed out. Thankfully Dad let me drive the 77 Vega, so that wasn't, like, I still got the race this year, which is perfectly okay with me. That car runs great, zero worries, it's trouble, I mean, it's a nice ride. The engine was completely machined, cleaned and all that. I went ahead, I assembled it with the SCAT rotating assembly, put the Herbert's cam back in it, which was, it's a C6E, so a 614 lift with, I think, a 230 lobe separation, something like that. It's a pretty rowdy cam. Put that in there with the roller lifters, remeasure the push rod length. Everything should have been the same. This has Dart Iron Eagle heads on it, so they're pretty good as far as that goes for an old cast iron head. Eventually, we'd like to probably switch to like an Edelbrock E210 or maybe some trick performance heads. Not sure yet. Like I said, goal for this year is basically get it going down the track. I want to get a full season out of it before I really go throwing any speed parts out. Make sure it's reliable. Make sure that the work I did is correct, because I don't want to throw $2,000 in heads, if not more, at it just for me to blow an engine up and maybe even damage the head. So I don't want to do that. I think I'll be okay this year because it's all forged. All the tolerances checked out good. All the rings were checked out good. So I'm okay. I think we'll be good. Get the timing set now that I got it locked out with this distributor. New carburetor. I think we won't have any fuel issues or timing issues. I think we'll be good to go. And now that doesn't mean that the rear end won't blow up or anything like that. So there's still other things that could potentially happen. The transmission I rebuilt. I over-adjusted the servo band. Basically cooked it. I didn't want to wait, so I drove to Pittsburgh. Some guy was selling a Power Glide transmission for $1,500. He gets them as cores, rebuilds them to the same specs that he does for his dragster. His dragster's about 900 horsepower, so he said he rates it for that, and he'd have no problems with putting it in something like this as well. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So the Power Glide transmission should be good to go. I don't really have any worries about that. So I hope everybody enjoyed the first episode of Impatient Garage. I think it's going to be really exciting. I pretty much figured that if nobody watches, nobody watches. I'm doing this stuff anyways. I'm going to do it my way. I'm hoping people come along, might have some tips or tricks that might guide me in the right direction, maybe point to a forum. I have all the books for the small block Chevy and the Power Glide that I kind of try to follow to a T. I get kind of bogged down in details of things and kind of lose track of some stuff, but pretty much get right back on it. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked watching along. I'm hoping, like I said, produce more content. I'm doing it anyways, so it really doesn't matter whether this takes off or not. I'm going to do it. I'm going to film it because it gives me something to do while I'm doing this work, and it kind of keeps me a little bit, keeps my patience in check, basically. So I don't get as impatient because I'm trying to be nice or be good for the camera here. So that's it. So that's the work that we did on the 64 AMC Rambler American. I really love this car. You know, it has that nice old school look to it. It's just, it's a very nice car. Got it, like I said, very cheap, so I'm excited to start producing some content with it. The next project you're going to see is my dad's 1977 Chevy Vega wagon. We're going to pull the engine out, get it prepped up to put a new set of heads on. He ordered a set of Edelbrock E210 heads for a roller cam. And the reason we did that is because the valve train geometry is off on those, so it's actually causing some premature valve wear. So we went ahead, we're going to put the new aluminum heads on there, take those World Sportsman 2 heads off, clean them up, probably do a valve job on them, and go from that shaft mount rocker system to a stud mount rocker system, and then put them on the small block 355 that we're going to be building here. That's pretty much going to be the spare engine. We're also going to rebuild the Power Glide that I actually ruined. I'm pretty sure I'll just pull it out, put a new servo band on it, clean it up, put it back in. I think we'll be good to go. We also have a TH350 we might get prepped up because his car does run a 350 in it. So we'll probably do that just so we have a couple of spares and everything. So one spare engine between the two cars and, you know, the two spare transmissions. He's kind of considered maybe going to Power Glide, but we're not sure because we probably have to change the rear end gearing to actually get it down there. So we got some new content coming, so I'm hoping you stick around or, you know, start watching and join us. I don't know everything. Heck, I don't really know much about any of it at all. I'm learning as I go, so I'm hoping you can join me along, give me some tips, or even just, you know, watch with me and learn from my mistakes. So that might be something we can get into. All right.